So a little background information, I was 17 and in 11th grade, and I'm not gonna lie, I was a mean person. Well, not kind of, I just was mean. Like, I got joy out of annoying and making fun of people. Yeah, I know there was something probably wrong with me, leave me alone. Anyway, so I would low-key always bully my cousin, and when she would get upset about it, I would make it seem as if it was a joke. Well, I guess the one day she had enough of me, because there was this boy that I really liked, and we didn't know each other at all, like we had never spoken one word to each other, and my cousin knew that I liked this boy, so she decided that she was going to email him asking him out. And no, this isn't one of those situations where she tried to steal the guy that I liked. Nope, instead she went on my email and emailed him acting like me. Sis must have been determined to get her lick back because I don't even know how she knew the password to my email. So the next day at school, him and I are in citizenship, and we're all on our laptops for this lesson. Well, all of a sudden, I hear him whisper my name to the popular girl that sits next to him, like for part 2. So like I said, I heard him whisper my name to the popular girl that sits next to him, and she has never liked me. I never bullied her. I know I said I was a mean person, but I didn't bully her. She just hated me. So of course she thinks it would be funny to confront me in front of the whole class, and she's like, why would you email him asking him out? Not only was I embarrassed, but I was shocked because I was like, what are you talking about? Honestly, I thought that they were lying, so I was like, whatever, I'll check when I get home. Well, when I went home that day and checked my email, what do you know? There it is. An email sent from my laptop saying, hey, I really like you. Do you want to go out with me? I forget how, but I found out that it was my cousin. I didn't do anything to her because the damage was already done at that point, but I got bullied so bad for the rest of that week. And I don't even know why. Everybody was being so extra about it. It's not like this kid had a girlfriend or anything, but people were whispering rude things to me in class. And the one day that week while I was in the locker room, that popular girl starts yelling that I have blood on my pants. Like, she screamed it so loud, everybody heard it. And I tried asking my cousin if there was anything. She was ignoring me. So now on top of the whole email situation, I was dealing with that. Obviously, eventually everything died down, but I definitely learned my lesson and I'm no longer a bully.
I hid my marriage from my parents for a year. Get ready with me, anonymous story time. Just a little background, my parents are very religious and they never approved of my boyfriend because he isn't Christian like us. My partner and I met during our senior year of high school, and the moment my parents found out that I was dating a boy, they made me break up with him. Because I didn't listen to my parents and I didn't break up with my partner, they ended up moving me across the state. My parents didn't let me have access to absolutely anything. And the crazy part was they didn't even let me go to school for 2 months. I stopped going to school for 2 months because they didn't approve of my boyfriend. Wild. I still can't believe it to this day. Not to mention, growing up, I wasn't allowed to do anything. My routine consisted of school, family, and church. That's it. So you're probably now wondering how I actually got to spend time with my boyfriend, although my parents never approved of us. Well, let me explain. Before my parents actually moved me, him and I went to the same school. But of course, I just wanted to spend a lot more time with him because it was actually very difficult to even see each other because we didn't have the same classes. And in high school, there was always 2 lunches. It was A lunch or B lunch, and we had opposite lunches. I basically told my parents that I joined a sport and I would get out of practice until 5 p.m. and I ended up sending them a schedule of my friend's sports schedule. That way they believed me, and sure enough, they fell for it. So during the time that I was supposed to be in practice, I would go over to his house and, just hang out with him. To this day, I'm honestly very surprised that I never got caught. Anyway, so fast forward, I'm now living in this new state where I know nobody but literally my mom and dad. The only thing that's running on my mind is to run away and go back to the state where I'm originally from and also the state where my boyfriend is currently at. I attempted to run away twice and I failed both times. My mother actually caught me, and then the 3rd time I was successful. So because my 3rd attempt in running away from my parents' home was successful, I am basically on a flight from Philadelphia back to my hometown, Texas, so I can meet up with my boyfriend. Now, as I'm older, I am aware and I understand that it wasn't the greatest idea. I feel like my parents were protecting me, but I also just got really tired of my parents trying to control my everyday move. I was also 18 years old. I wanted to live my life, and I felt like my parents didn't let me enjoy my teenage years, so in a way, I kind of became rebellious. Again, it might have not been the greatest move, the greatest decision, but what's done is done. As soon as I landed in Texas, my boyfriend came to the airport to pick me up and we went straight to the court office to get married. Later on that day, my mom was blowing up my phone and she ended up finding out that I was back in Texas. She was extremely upset, but I told her that I was not coming back, and although she tried to fight so hard for me to come back to where she was at, I refused to, and in a way she kind of just let me be. I told her that I am going to stay back here in Texas. I'm going to live with my boyfriend, that his family was okay for me to move in, happen, and I know she was livid. She was furious, but she let it be. She knew that it was just best for me to learn my lesson. My partner and I's anniversary was coming up, so I thought it was just right to tell my mom that my man and I ended up getting married. I didn't have the courage to call her, so I ended up sending her a text message, and in the text I basically told her, hey mom, I'm sorry, but I just couldn't tell you over the phone because I didn't know how you were going to react. But basically my boyfriend and I got married, so now he is my husband, and this happened a year ago when I decided to run away. My mother was very disappointed in me, and honestly I didn't expect anything less. I knew she was going to be upset, she wasn't going to be happy about it, but I just knew that I wanted to marry this person and I wanted him to be in my life. That is the time I hid my marriage from my parents.
Storytime about how my mother-in-law accused me of cheating on her son. My evil mother-in-law is the worst of the worst. The moment I started dating her perfect little son, she would make judgmental comments on my body, and if I was ever in the kitchen cooking, she would be there to try to criticize everything that I would do. When my husband and I finally got pregnant, she pretended to be happy. I could see deep down inside she was hating the fact that I was pregnant. I think she always had the hope that he would leave me. But let me give you some background info on my husband. This man is lucky to be with me. Not only am I a 12, I am so kind and caring to him, and I have way too much patience for him. Whereas my mother-in-law thinks that he's the one lucky to be with me. First off, I make way more money than my husband, so I'm the one paying for most of the bills. But guess what? My husband asked me not to tell his mom about that because he'd be embarrassed. He also doesn't know how to cook or clean. And guess why? Because his mother did everything for him growing up. So I'm the one that has to cook, clean, and pay for the bills. A few months ago, I asked my husband for a divorce. He ran over to his mom's house and tried to get her to convince me not to. But guess what? His mom called me and told me that she'd convince him to give me a divorce. Part 2 is up. So instead of her trying to convince me not to leave him, she told me that she would convince my husband to break up with me. This was all for my benefit because I was the one that wanted a divorce. But 2 weeks later, I find out I'm pregnant. At the time, we were still living in the same house, but we weren't really talking. So I finally went up to him and told him that I was pregnant. He was so happy. You think he even gave me a hug or a kiss? No, he picked up the phone and called his mother right away. He called her on speaker and I could hear what she was saying. And as soon as he told her, she said, it's probably not your kid. How could I have not seen this coming? At this point, she thought we were gonna get a divorce. So me having a kid was the worst case scenario for her. Right away, she told him to kick me out of the house that I pay for. That's when I grabbed the phone from him and I started telling her everything. First off, I told her that I paid for all the bills and that her son made only $200 a week from a stupid gaming thing, and that he wasn't even bothering to look for another job. And then on top of paying for the bills, I still had to cook and clean. And I asked her, do you really think this is the kind of man I want to have a kid with? She had no response. That's when she hung up the phone and told my husband to go over to her house. Part 3 is up. When I broke the news to her that he didn't pay for any of the bills and that I was paying for the house, she literally lost her shit. My husband hung up the phone and told me that he would never speak to me again. God, if only that were true. Then he goes over to his mom's house, and guess what? An hour later, he demands I go over to her house to apologize to his mother. I said that I would, but instead, I went over there and told her some more truths. I ended up telling her that her son told me not to tell her that he didn't make any money, and that the whole time he and I were together, she thought that he was paying for all the bills. Then I said, aren't you embarrassed that your son is like that? That's when she told me the only way she would accept my child was with a paternity test. Am I supposed to do that with the baby in my belly? Finally, the baby was born and I was able to prove that it was his son. My husband wants us to stay together, but his mom keeps criticizing me. Every time she sees the kid, she says it doesn't look like my husband, even though I already proved that it was his. I think that I should get a divorce. I'm afraid my mother-in-law might do something to the baby. My husband thinks I'm just overreacting. What should I do?